We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse's Phil Brasher, as well as this week by Congressman David Rouzer. And Congressman Rouzer, we appreciate you joining us.
Great to be with you.
For starters, want to talk about probably the biggest news item of the week in foreign policy, and that is something that we've kind of been watching for a while, but saw some more official action on it here this week. That is the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers kind of officially declaring that they're going to take another crack at the waters of the U.S. issue. Of course, foreign policy veterans will remember this is something the Obama administration did, the Trump administration rewrote, and now it looks like the Biden administration is going to take another crack at it. Wonder what was kind of going through your mind when you heard the news that this announcement was taking place, and looking forward, what do you hope to see the Biden administration do, as it pursues this rewrite?
Well, I was disappointed, but not surprised. And of course, when we got the rewrite under the Trump administration, everybody was thrilled with that because the original waters of the U.S. Rule really could have been interpreted in such a way by bureaucrats to include every body of water that's out there, particularly, even ditches and puddles in some places, and including some dry land, depending upon the interpretation. So it would be very, very problematic for agriculture. And in fact, you talk about a bipartisan issue. Democrat mayors, Republican mayors, farm groups, many other groups, home builders, your realtors, all of them were very, very concerned about the original rule. So I'm disappointed that this administration has decided that they want to rewrite it. We're going to be following it very, very closely. But again, I wasn't surprised.
Congressman, I'd like to turn to infrastructure for a minute. You were in the rest of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. We're up until 5 o'clock in the morning yesterday debating a Democratic bill, a service transportation bill of almost $600 billion that will go a long way toward addressing priorities that the Democrats have. Related to climate and infrastructure. One of the things this bill would do that you on the Republican, others on the Republican side highlighted was that it would require states when they're looking at highway projects to consider other options before widening highways. Trying to push states toward building more rail service, for example, public transit. Talk about that. Where is this headed?
Well, I'm hopeful that the Senate ultimately produces a bill that is much more reasonable. The problem that we've got with the House version is about $1 out of every two is basically spent towards this Green New Deal pipe dream that, quite frankly, just is not going to work. Now, I've always been on record as an all of the above energy guy. You need oil, you need gas, you need all of it. But this drive to move completely away from fossil fuels, I guess they just want us to do rail and bicycle from here on out. I mean, this provision that does not allow you to expand highways before you pursue other options is just ridiculous. I don't think my constituents or anybody else in the country is going to really like that if this were to become law. So I'm very hopeful that the Senate will bring a little more common sense to the table, be more practical about it, and that we can get a bill that can get signed into law. I feel like President Biden received something on his desk. I think he'll sign it. But then again, it's been amazing to watch just how much influence the far left wing of the Democrat Party has on the leadership in the House.
You mentioned the Senate. There was a group of Democrats and Republicans who on Thursday said they had sort of reached a tentative deal, didn't provide a lot of details. In the meantime, the majority leader over there, Chuck Schumer, is still talking about the option of going through a partisan reconciliation process. There's a lot of things that wouldn't probably be in this agreement. Are you really optimistic that the Senate can produce something that the House will pass?
Well, I prefer to be an optimist and not a pessimist. And, this is one issue where there really should be a good, strong bipartisan compromise. I think that the primary agreement that the group of bipartisan senators have reached really is on the spending. I think they're looking at about 1.2 trillion. I would be more comfortable in the range of 800 billion to a trillion. I do think there needs to be a significant investment in broadband, particularly for rural areas, and I certainly consider that part of infrastructure. I think there's a strong bipartisan group of members in the House and Senate that agree with that, in addition to roads, bridges, waterways, et cetera. Locks and dams, obviously, which are very important, for agriculture. So I am hopeful, but yet I'm not going to be surprised if it all boils down and it turns out to be a very partisan process through reconciliation. But I don't think that's in the best interest of the country. And I think if the Democrats continue to pursue that route, they're going to end up being very disappointed long term.
And related to that, Senate Agriculture Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow has been pursuing $50 billion in new conservation spending, which would potentially be added to a climate and infrastructure bill. This week, we also had a number of farm groups ask for $40 billion in agricultural research spending. What do you think about, are those amounts needed? And does that complicate the process of getting a bill passed? This is money going to the farm bill.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think our focus should be what enables our farmers and ranchers to produce the most abundant food and fiber supply available. The idea of conservation left and right, we're all for conservation. But when these become mandatory programs and unnecessary regulatory burdens, that's a real hindrance to production agriculture and doing what we need to do in order to feed and clothe ourselves and be a major influence in the world from a standpoint of food agriculture and fiber, of course. So that's my general premise that, I really think that we need to focus our policies around. And as far as, the Senate and Stabenow, and I have a suspicion that most of her money is probably going to be all for Green New Deal type initiatives, conservation initiatives that in the end aren't going to be very beneficial to production agriculture.
Congressman, I want to wrap up talking about something, really a lot of different directions we could go if we wanted to bring up livestock and beef issues that have been top of mind here these last couple of weeks. Obviously, we had the JBS hack. We've seen some concerns about, the beef market structure in general here, with a number of pieces of legislation dropped, including one this week by your colleague, Vicky Hartzler. But we've heard quite a bit on the Senate side of things that they're looking at taking a look at this, potentially holding a hearing. From your perspective as ranking member of the Livestock and Foreign Ag Subcommittee, what should we expect the House to do, in terms of the chamber as a whole, the committee, the subcommittee? Where do you think this issue is going to fall in terms of priorities and action items in the House?
Well, I think cybersecurity is a very important topic across the board. It's especially important as it relates to our energy security, our food security. And certainly we've seen two great examples of that with the hack on the Colonial Pipeline, and then also, this latest hack on a major meat provider for the country. And so I think this is something that we've got to take a really strong look at. I anticipate that there's going to be a continued and growing interest in it. And I think the truth of the matter is the private sector as a whole is not well equipped to deal with these ransom attacks. This is not new. It's been taking place for some time. I know examples where they have hacked, not maybe this particular criminal element, but other criminal elements have hacked other companies, and then they resolve the issue with a ransom payment. And they call them the next day and say, if you don't want this to happen again, you can buy hacking insurance from us, for lack of a better term. So it is a real business that we need to come to grips with, and I think there needs to be a national public-private partnership in this area to really strengthen these industries in particular that are so critical to our national security and food security. So I anticipate you're going to see a lot of activity on this front.
On the issue specifically of just that broader beef cattle market structure, do you think there's an appetite in the House to do something on that this year?
I'm not quite certain how much we're going to be able to achieve in the next year and a half, quite frankly, because of all the partisanship and the craziness that we're dealing with in the political realm. But I do think that a tremendous amount of work is going to take place in this arena that will prepare us to address it, perhaps probably in a later Congress. But you never know. I might be pleasantly surprised.
Well, a lot of folks, surprised either pleasantly or otherwise with the news of this week and the weeks that came before it. But obviously, a number of different things going on in the grand scheme of farm policy. And Congressman Rouzer, we appreciate you stopping by to discuss those with us.
Well, great to be with you today.
For Congressman David Rouzer and Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.